Welcome back to TYT Sports. Francis Maxwell here. Talking tactics as always. Chelsea hosting Arsenal. Now what a game. Get the handbags at the ready for the Arsene Wenger, Jose Mourinho fiasco that will probably happen again. Will they shake hands? Will they not? But we're going to talk about the stuff that really matters, and that is the tactical lineup. How will each team play off their recent Champions League form this week? We'll find out. Let's talk tactics. So let's talk about some logistics first with the lineup. A few changes that Chelsea will have to imply because Willian apparently has a hamstring injury. So I imagine, based on their lack of depth in this position, because Pedro also apparently has an injury, I could see Ramirez coming in. He's a hard worker. He'll definitely track back, especially with how Arsenal are going to try to exploit those wide areas. I could see Ramirez coming in. But the back line for me, Rahman had a good debut. I think he's got areas of weakness. But the reason why I imagine he's going to start over the basically Ivanovic, who I would imagine playing at right back, is crucial. I think Azpilicueta at right back. For me, Azpilicueta is one of the best one-on-one defenders in the world. Who is Arsenal's main point of weakness, main point of attack? Sorry, should I say, down the left-hand side? Alexis Sanchez. Now, this would be a mouth-watering matchup. I would love to see this, and I think that Jose Mourinho, being the tactical genius that he is, will go ahead and try to play Azpilicueta directly against Sanchez, and I'll tell you why in a second. But Terry and Cahill, it could easily be Zuma and Cahill. It could easily be Zuma and Terry. We don't really know at this moment with Mourinho because he's a little inconsistent with his back four, and who can blame him because they haven't been performing at their best. Matic did not start against Maccabi Tel Aviv, but I do think, seeing Mourinho's ego, that he needs to start his star players. I imagine that Matic will come back in with Fabregas, of course, playing against his old team Arsenal. Oscar, Hazard, Ramirez and Costa coming back into the starting lineup, I imagine, after that beautiful volley. So a couple of things that basically Chelsea have to do, and that will quickly transition over to what Arsenal could do as well, is that Chelsea have been very poor at marking in the wide areas, and they are leaving gaping seams throughout their back line, which is just crazy considering how tight of a unit they were last year. This is an example of Chelsea basically from last season. If the ball was in this area, I swear to God, Chelsea's movement as a unit, even the goalkeeper at times, I would say, they were all moving so well together in suffocating space. This is what they started to do more so against Maccabi Tel Aviv. So this just forces basically teams to play in this area. And it makes it very complicated to find those gaps. And Arsenal, used to that big field at the Emirates, they won't play well in this environment. But if there's players in there that can find their way out of those tight spaces, it is Ozil, it is Cazorla, it is Alexis Sanchez. So the reason why I'm saying that this is crucial in this game is because if it so happens that Oxlade-Chamberlain goes one-on-one, I fancy Oxlade-Chamberlain one-on-one against Ivanovic any day other than playing against Rahman, who is very fast and athletic, and Azpilicueta. So if I was Jose Mourinho, I would be sure to start at Rahman again to make sure that there's always cover in behind. But the reason why I'd play Azpilicueta, naturally, he's just a gifted one-on-one defender, and I think that a lot of Arsenal's movement is coming from the inside space. So what I mean by that is Alexis Sanchez picks up the ball in this area, cuts inside onto his right foot and tries to find these gaping runs, these seams that Chelsea basically are leaving wide open in the Premier League, that Theo Walcott, as we know, Giroud, I don't think will start after being sent off so early against Zagreb in the week, during the week, in the Champions League. I imagine that Walcott will come back in to kind of hold a fast line up top and try to exploit those gaps. So I think it's key that Azpilicueta plays right back because he's so used to playing left back. Forcing Alexis Sanchez inside naturally will come easy to him. Of course, you want to force the players outside. That's just common defensive rule. But Azpilicueta, I think, forcing Alexis in there, I don't think he's going to win the ball every time, but he's basically more comfortable doing this than Ivanovic. Ivanovic, I think, just trips over his own feet when he gets taken inside. And it's surprising that because most players do it. I remember Harry Kane last season with Tottenham against Chelsea, one of the rare games where Chelsea conceded a lot of goals, was because of this. And I think that more teams are realising that. But if Azpilicueta plays at right back, I think this will be a harder task for them. And quickly to talk about a brief bit of attack for Chelsea. The more they win possession in and amongst their own half, the quicker they're going to be at transitioning. You've seen against Maccabi Tel Aviv, when they won the ball inside their own half, the counter-attack was so familiar to last season. They just attacked in numbers and they got obviously a goal in the end of it. And I think that the quicker they counter-attack Arsenal, the better chance they have. But the main point for Chelsea, for me, is that Azpilicueta playing directly against Alexis Sanchez, because with Walcott up top, Walcott's going to make these type of runs in behind like he does so well, and he's expecting Alexis Sanchez to cut inside and thread that ball right through there. So I think that to play Azpilicueta, it's going to limit that chance, and it's going to allow for Chelsea to push forward basically and play inside Arsenal's half. Now, this is how I imagine, talking about Arsenal there, I'm going to transition into their lineup. This is how I imagine they will line up against Chelsea. So Peter Cech, I imagine, will come back in goal after a rest midweek against Zagreb. Gibbs, Koscielny, Paulista, Debussy at the back, Cazorla and Arteta in there. Coquelin could easily make a return in there. I think that they would like that physical presence, specifically against the likes of Oscar, who's going to push into that hole. I would fancy Coquelin every day in terms of a physical battle against Oscar, but you know, with Arsene Wenger's lenience towards Arteta, he loves to continue to play Arteta. But this is where they're going to be dangerous. Look at the speed of that front four. So Ozil, of course, being the creative mind in there, Sanchez, Chamberlain and Walcott. Now, what they need to exploit is simple. It's simple this season, where it was so difficult last season, is to break the bank of 5 that was last season. This was Chelsea's bank of 5 last year. So tight, so cohesive in their movement, back to back, moving across side to side. Matic was literally a guard. This season, Matic, I don't know whether his partnership with Fabregas is just is a little bit hindered towards it, especially with the goals they've been leaking. I can't imagine that confidence is so high, and Matic being dropped against Maccabi, I don't think would have boosted his confidence anymore. So Fabregas did grab a goal because he was allowed to push forward more. But if they can continue to keep Fabregas back, not only will they find possession in this area, because Oscar, I don't think, is physical enough to hold up play so that he can allow for his team to push forward. So what Arsenal want to try and do is basically pin Chelsea back, force Fabregas to play as a holding midfielder, because he's not the best defensively. And when Matic and Fabregas are pinned back into their own half, they don't work as well together. When Fabregas finds time to move up into this area and push opponents into their own half, that's when Fabregas picks up the ball in these areas, like he did against Maccabi, of course, finding Diego Costa with that beautiful volley. But what Arsenal have to do with the speed that they have is push Chelsea into their own box. Make sure that that line is very deep. And with the speed they have from Walcott and Oxlade-Chamberlain, make sure that that game's played in Stamford Bridge's half. Make sure that the ball is finding its way in the final third and they're keeping possession, because if you watch Arsenal, they do a very good job of moving the ball side to side. They've got a lot of talented players in Cazorla, in Ozil, in Oxlade-Chamberlain and Alexis Sanchez, and of course Theo Walcott up top, that they want to keep possession in this area, with Coquelin, I imagine, being the better fit to sit defensively. Even if it is Arteta, I think he'll still be fine. But with this game, I'm going to give my prediction based on what I've seen in the last game, and that is a Champions League game. I think that Arsenal might want to say that their confidence is not going to be hindered after that poor result, but I genuinely think that this could be a turning point in Chelsea's season. So I'm going to go with a narrow 1-0 victory for the Premier League champions. I think that they'll frustrate Arsenal. I think that the lack of physical presence up top with Theo Walcott, they may well bring on Giroud, but I just don't think they have enough physical presence in there. And I think that Chelsea with that victory will lift and they'll be more confident. Arsenal could easily win this game. Do not get me wrong. I'm not going to sit here and say that's not possible. But I do think that Chelsea might actually grind out a very similar result to what they have done in last season on many occasions. And I think they'll get a 1-0 victory. And I think maybe even a goal from the likes of Hazard, who's due one. He just missed a penalty kick against Maccabi, so he's anxious to get a goal. But that's my prediction. Agree, disagree? Let me know in the comment section below. As always, tweet me throughout the game. I'm always active on Twitter on these games, @Francis_Maxwell, on Instagram, @FrancisMaxwellTYT, and as always, subscribe to TYT Sports.